All right, do this along with me step by step. This week, we're focusing on graphing these systems of inequalities. It's important that you're not just shading all over the place. I only want you to shade the solution area, no place else, okay? So look, of course, the first step is to just graph the line. So let's start with this equation right here. It's already in slope-intercept form, so that's good. So I'm going to start with the y-intercept at -1. But where am I going to go from there? How will I put more dots on this graph? Well, what about the fact that it's negative? Right, because it's -3, that's like -3/1, right? So I'm going to go down 3, right 1 over and over again. Okay, so we're going to start at that -1, but then we're going to go down 3/1 like this. So starting from -1, but if we go down 3, right 1, always go to the right at first. So down 3, right 1, down 3, right 1. Make sure you put as many dots as you can, even to the left. So going in the other direction, it's going to be up 3, left 1, up 3, left 1, up 3, left 1. So these are the dots that you should have on your paper for this one. Any questions so far? Okay, if you graphed it wrong, fix it, please. Now remember, sometimes we do a solid line, sometimes we do a dotted line. For this equation up here, is this going to be a solid or a dotted line? Solid. This one's going to be solid. Why? How do I know it's going to be a solid line and not a dotted line? Because of this little equal to part under it. Because it says greater than or equal to. So go ahead and draw your solid line through there. Okay. All right. So your line should look something like this. Any questions so far? All right. Now here's what I want you to do. Remember how we shade above or below, depending on this symbol right here. Am I going to shade above or below on this problem, you guys? Above. I hear my two people saying above. Why? Why is this, Katie? Why are they saying above?
They are saying above because if you like took it and made it go up, it would be above. Like,
which symbol are they looking at when they say above?
The greater than or equal to?
Yeah, okay, so hopefully everyone's focused on this because it's greater than or equal to. When you see that greater than, you should be thinking above. It's going to be above, okay? But this time I do not want you to shade, I don't want you to go like this and shade all over the place above the line because we have another line coming. So I want you just to put a tiny little bit of shading above the line like this. Okay, do this with me. This is the above side of the line.
Look at the above today.
Okay, but see how I'm putting just a tiny little bit of shading above the line? Everybody do this with me. Do not shade in the entire side of the graph. Just put a little bit of shading on the above side of the line, like this. Okay? We will not shade in a whole area until the end. Okay, now let's do the other line. Any questions so far? Does everyone understand why I shaded that side of the line instead of the other?
Yes.
Okay.
No.
Alright, now I'm going to switch to blue for the other one. Okay, so the other equation is this. When I graph this equation, I'm thinking of the line y equals x plus 2. So I'm going to start with that y-intercept of 2, which will be right there. Now, where am I going to go from there to get more points. Rise 1, run 1. This is like a slope of 1 over 1 in front. So starting from this blue dot, I will go up 1, right 1, over and over again like this. Okay, so I'm going to have all these points. Make sure you put points going to the left as well, following the same pattern. Okay, if you didn't already do it with me now. Now, am I going to draw a dotted line or a solid line this time?
Dotted.
This time it's going to be dotted because it does not have the or equal to under it. So make sure that you're drawing a dotted line this time, you guys. Okay, this is hard to do. Okay, so make sure you draw yourself a dotted line. Okay. Let's see. Aline, am I going to shade above or below this time?
Below.
This time I'm going to shade below. Okay. Guadalupe, how does she know we were going to shade below this time? Why below? No sabes? Okay. Look up here for 1 second. Look at these two symbols. Okay, look at the two symbols I just put on the screen. One is blue and one is red. This blue one, is this greater or less, this blue symbol? It's less, okay? So this blue symbol right here is a less than sign, okay? So let me put less under that. What about the red one? The red one is greater. Okay, so which one of those would be the same as above? The blue one? It's actually going to be the greater than one, okay? Because, think about it, greater means the same thing as more, okay? Greater is more, less would be below, all right? Below and less sort of mean the same thing. Greater and more mean the same thing. So if you see that symbol that's saying greater, that's when you're going to shade above. If you see a symbol that's less, that's when you're going to shade below. Okay? So we're going to shade below this time because it says less than. But again, just put a little bit of shading on it. Do not shade in the whole side of the graph. Just go like this. Put a little bit of shading underneath like this. Just a little bit. All along the line, but staying below the line. Okay? Only at the end do I want you to shade in the whole area. Now, look at these areas. I'm going to number them. Area 1, 2, 3, and 4. Show me on your fingers which one of those 4 areas is the solution that I'm going to shade in. Show me on your fingers. Is the final answer going to be zone 1, zone 2, zone 3, or zone 4? 3. Just show me. Okay, the reason why it's going to be zone 3 is because remember the small amount of shading that we put on the graph to remind us of which side of the line we have to shade. Look at the red shading that we did first. The red shading reminds us that we need to be above that line. So we need to stay above the red line. Look at the blue line. We put a little bit of shading on that to remind us that we need to be below the blue line. So the solution area has to satisfy both of those at the same time. We need to be above the red line and below the blue line at the same time. In other words, look for the area that has all the shading pointing at it. Okay? So can you see that zone 3 has shading pointing at it from both directions, from above and below? The shading is all pointing to zone 3. That's how you know that zone 3 is the solution. Or it has the double shading. Okay? So that is the only zone that you're going to shade all the way in. Okay? So then at the last step you would take your pencil and you would shade in this whole area and only this area. Okay, so problem number 1, everybody's graph should look like that. Any questions so far? All right, I'm only going to do just one step for you on problem number 2, but then I want you to very carefully do the rest by yourself. You know what? I'm going to do this whole problem for you. But then I'll give you new problems to do. Okay, look, here's the thing. When we look at problem number 2, this first equation is like, when I look at this, I think of the equation y equals -5. Johnny, do you remember how we graph tiny little equations like this? How do we graph the equation y equals a number? You put it on that number. Okay, y equals -5. You know you're going to go to the y-axis at -5. Johnny's saying, let's put a dot at -5 on the y-axis.
Who said that?
Johnny said that. Okay, so here's the y-axis. There's a dot at -5. Now what do I do, Johnny? Okay, Johnny's showing with his arm a horizontal line because we have to draw a line across that axis now. Okay, is it going to be dotted or solid, Johnny? It's going to be dotted. Notice it does not have the or equal to part to it, so it's going to be a dotted line. So everybody draw a dotted line across the y-axis at -5. Okay? So remember, when you have these tiny little equations, that's either going to be a horizontal line or a vertical line. Now, Abdullah,
Yes,
am I going to shade above or below, sir?
Sir, let me think about that. I think you're going to shade above.
Above, correct. Okay, I'm going to shade above. It says greater than, so I'm going to shade above. Now again, just put a little bit of shading above. Do not shade in all over the place. Just a little bit of shading. Just enough to remind us later what we decided. Okay? Now let's do the other one. Let me switch to blue. Okay, when I see that equation, in my mind I'm thinking x equals 3. Okay, now Mr. Scott,
Yes, sir.
how do I graph the line x equals 3, sir? Where do I put my first dot? Right, go to 3 on the x-axis. Get that headphone off your ear. I don't want to see it. Off, completely. Off your neck, gone. Off your neck too.
In your pocket. Right now.
So you go to the x-axis and you put a dot at 3. Okay, now what do I do? Right, so it's going to be a line across that axis. So this time it's going to be a vertical line. Dotted or solid? It'll be a dotted line because it does not have the or equal to line under it. So it's going to be a dotted line. So everybody put a dotted line across. So it's going to be a vertical dotted line this time.
Mr. Berlin,
My friend.
I have a question. Now, how do you know which part of the relationship above or below? Because it's like in the...
That is an excellent question. Abdullah is pointing out that when we have a vertical line, this is the one time that there is no above or below. This is the one time that we have to go left and right. Okay? But this is easy because greater than will just be to the right. Just like on a number line, the bigger numbers are always to the right.
So we shade to the right?
So we're going to shade to the right. So in this case, you see the symbol pointing like that? It's almost like an arrow reminding you to go that way. Okay? So we will shade to the right. So when it's a vertical line, we have to go to the right when it's greater than. So again, just put a little bit of shading on it, not a lot. Just enough to remind us which side we decided on.
Not too much, only little bit.
Okay? Now, here are my zones. I'm going to call this 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay? Show me on your fingers which one of these 4 zones is going to be the solution area. Okay, so we have one more equation that we have to do. And that equation is 2x plus y is less than or equal to 13. This equation is not in slope-intercept form, so we have to rearrange it before we graph it. I hear Abdullah saying that we need to subtract 2x from both sides. That's true. So that's going to give us y is less than or equal to
13 minus 2x.
I'm going to go ahead and write it as negative 2x plus 13, just so it's in slope-intercept form.
Does it matter which way you put it?
No, as long as you recognize what part is the intercept and what's the slope.
Yes, sir.
Okay? Wow, okay, so this is kind of off the graph a little bit. But I did do this, but we'll do our best. So 13 is a little off the graph, so I'm going to have to put, so this is like 1, this is like 11, 12. 13 would be like up here someplace. But then the slope is down 2 over 1. Okay, so starting way up here, if I go down 2 over 1, and then down 2 over 1, now I'm back on the graph again. So down 2 over
9, yeah?
down 2 over 1. Okay, so I had to go off the graph a little bit with the 13, but that's okay. We can still do it. Down 2 over 1, down 2 over 1. Is this going to be a solid line or a dotted line, you guys?
Solid.
This one's going to be a solid line because of the or equal to part under it. So please make this a solid line when you do it. Okay. Am I going to shade above or below this time? All right. Veronica, what do you think? Am I going to do above or below this time?
Below.
Veronica. Below, okay? This time we're going to do below because you see the less than tells us we're going to do below, okay? So again, I'm going to put just a little bit of shading on the below side of the line like this. Just a little bit of shading. Okay? Can you guys see the area that has all the shading pointing at it? What does it look like?
Triangle.
Yeah, can you see that it's this triangle right here that has all the shading? So we can go ahead and shade in, but the only part that we're going to shade in is this triangle right here. Nothing else, nothing outside of the triangle.
Well, you teach different, Mr. Adams. It's like shade all the parts and find out which two colors come together, and that's the solution.
Well, I did the same thing, but all it takes is a little bit of shading to show you where to shade your answer. Okay? So only the triangle should get the full shading. Until then, you should just do a little bit to keep your graph readable. If you shade it all over the place and then try to see where they overlap, no one's going to be able to read that. Okay? Any questions? That's how you graph a system of inequalities. Now I'm going to give you some practice for you guys to do.